Hello, this is Rob Strano. I'm here in Orlando, Florida, and we're at the new FlightScope studio. I am an advisory board member and I'm here to shoot some video on instruction using the FlightScope and body track technology. We're going to call this series Tales from the Tour, and I'm going to share stories from my 15 years as a touring professional and my years as a coach out on tour with information that will help you improve your game. Our first story from Tales from the Tour comes from my years out on what is now the web.com tour. And one year I was over in Springfield, Missouri playing the event there. I was fortunate enough to be invited to play in the Pro-Am at the course where Payne Stewart learned to play golf. And the interesting thing is I got paired with 4 lawyers from the Springfield area. 3 really good players, and one guy they brought along as kind of a punching bag for 18 holes. He wasn't a very good player by his own admission, and after the first 2 holes I was convinced he was correct, because he had a slice so bad we had to cross almost 2 fairways to get to his ball in the first 2 holes. After those holes, I kind of walked up, put up my shoulder next to him and said, "Hey, do you mind if I give you a little help?" And he said, "Rob, I'd love some help." I noticed he was pretty athletic, had a pretty good golf swing, but the way he set up was with his shoulders wide open, and that just led him to have a big cut across swing. So I said, the problem with right arm dominant people is we tend to stick the club in behind the ball with the dominant right arm. So using FlightScope today, we're going to show you when you're a right-handed person and you're right arm dominant in placing the club behind the ball, what it does to your setup and how that dramatically affects your FlightScope output numbers. Then I'm going to show you the right way and show you how those numbers improve on the screen with FlightScope and walk you through a couple of the screens and what we see on the setting. Now, the interesting thing is I gave him that little bit of advice. I got him simply squared up at address, and I said, all I want you to do is picture the ball flying straight for me. I don't want you to picture it slicing all over the place. And he started to play pretty well. It was one of those Pro-Ams where we had to use everybody's tee shot a certain number of times, so it was critical that we got him to play some golf. Well, not only did he play some golf, but he helped the team out. We turned on the front 9 and put up scores of 2, 1, 2, 3, 2 to start the front 9, and shot something crazy like 23 or 4 on the front 9 on the way to winning the Pro-Am by 4 shots. So let's go check out some FlightScope data. I'm going to demo the way he swung the golf club and set up. Then I'm going to show you the right way, and you're going to see a big dramatic increase in numbers. So come enjoy Tales from the Tour Part 1. So now we're going to recreate what happened in that Pro-Am years ago when I played with that attorney. I'm going to show you how he set up to hit the golf ball. And I'm going to hit a shot almost exactly like he did on those first couple holes. Then we're going to go over and look at the FlightScope data and see some amazing numbers from what the golf ball did as the club passed through some faulty positions. Then I'll show you the proper setup and we'll show you the change in the numbers. So what we saw, remember, was we saw a dominant right arm at setup. So a right-handed guy shoved the club out with his right arm, thrusting his shoulders open, his hips open, and he had a ball position that was way too far forward. So on the body track, we'll see some different pressure values that we really like, and we'll see an interesting golf swing. So when I hit this shot, this is what he looked like. So right arm led the club behind the ball. It opened up his shoulders and hips. And this is what his swing looked like. Now, it was a pretty athletic golf swing. He could move the club head. He could create some speed. But the way he set up did not help him at all find the middle of the face and hit a straight shot. Let's go look at our FlightScope data now. So now here we are at the FlightScope screen with the body track pressure mat information up. One thing that we're led to see on these readouts is we look at the numbers at setup. And when you see a near 50-50 number here in the pressure left and right, but you see a heavy heel value in the left heel, that's a quick indication that the hips are open. So like I said, this guy being right arm dominant shoved his right arm out, his right shoulder popped out, but because his ball position was so far forward also, his hips were spun forward as his hands were too far forward. So as we bring everything back to square, we've got to be mindful of getting these pressure values to equal out. So we look at his swing data, We're going to bring up the swing data now. So the interesting thing about this shot that he hit was when you look at the numbers here, the lateral landing was 40 yards to the right with a spin axis of 45 degrees to the right. So he had 45 degrees of axis tilt in his shot there because of that dominant right arm opening everything up real wide. Then you look at some fun other numbers here are, the face to path was 20.7 to the right with a path that was 12.6 left. So you've got roughly a 32-degree variance between those two. So he had just simply a setup error. Like I said, it was a good athletic golf swing. I got him to square everything back up, understand if you just stood normal and bent to the ball, and then pictured a straight shot, all of a sudden that big slice went away. Didn't mean that he didn't hit a few cuts here and there that were in the first few feet of the right rough. But boy, all those wild numbers you just saw went away. So I'm going to hit a shot real quick, showing you squared up and good values, and then we'll conclude with seeing the difference between the two. So now let me show you the simple corrections we made in his setup that helped him hit the ball straighter. Remember I said he's right arm dominant, which is most of the population. So the thing you've got to be cautious of is that the right arm does not dominate when you go to put the club behind the ball. The right arm doesn't shove out as the left arm stays weak and behind. A good player has learned that the left arm leads the club into the ball and the right arm kind of is relaxed and back. So that's all I told him was, I want you to lead with the left arm, get it out there, let the right arm stay in, and all of a sudden, everything gravitated back to square, and he started hitting good shots. So let me show you before and after. So here's the before setup. And then when I told him to get the left arm leading, so instead of right arm leading, I got left arm leading the setup. That's where he looked. And that helped him to hit a good shot. So when you get set up correctly, you have a chance to make an athletic golf swing that looks something like this. Let's go look at that data compared to the other data. Okay, so now let's compare some data between his old setup and the way I had him set up. And this is where it gets really interesting to see just how important good square athletic setup is to hitting good golf shots. So when you look at the data here, just looking at the lateral landing and the spin axis, we went from a lateral landing of 40 right to 5 right, a spin axis of 45 to 0.3 right. So it's a huge change in our spin axis numbers there. And then when you look at some of the other good numbers, like your face to path, 0.1 right from 20.7 right, you had a club path that was 12.6 left, it was 1.1 right. So you can see these two numbers right here, almost at zero with face to path and your club path, all changed just simply because of good athletic setup. So keep in mind what we talked about here. If you're right arm dominant, you don't want to shove that right arm out and keep that left arm back. Let the left arm lead you into your setup. It'll get you square. Then just focus on being athletic in your setup with your pressure 50-50. And from there, you've got a pretty good chance at hitting a good golf shot. This is Strano from the FlightScope studio. Thanks for watching.